ignites fire in Morocco's most populous city.
The fiery blast sends balls of flames into the Casablanca sky and burns nearby houses. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
Philippines records 4 cases of BF7 Omicron subvariant. Health expert admits existing COVID vaccines won't work against Omicron. Marcos administration secures $23.6 billion in investment pledges. President Joe Biden warns Americans to take winter storms seriously. And Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to swiftly end conflict in Ukraine.
The Department of Health has recorded 4 new cases of BF7 Omicron subvariant in the country. The DOH says the BF7 subvariant is recorded under BA5. The DOH adds there is no evidence currently available that suggests BF7 is more severe than the original Omicron variant. The European Center for Disease Control or Disease Prevention and Control is currently monitoring its effects. DOH researchers flagged the variant to be potentially more transmissible than BA5 for its immune-evading properties. The DOH reminds the public to wear proper fitting masks, isolate when sick, get vaccinated and boosted, and ensure good airflow to prevent the spread of the virus. Following these protocols will decrease the number of infections.
The Department of Health warns that daily COVID-19 cases might reach more than 4,000 in January 2023. Madeline Villar-Morotillo has the details.
The current daily average cases of COVID-19 is below 1,000, but the Department of Health warns of a possible increase in severe and critical cases of virus infections in January. DOH data shows a projection of more than 4,000 daily cases of COVID-19 by January 15 due to high mobility during the holiday season. Various gatherings are held and face mask policy is relaxed. The DOH projects that severe and critical admissions in mid-January may reach 2,252. Until December 18, DOH data showed the country's total severe and critical COVID-19 cases was 592. The DOH reminded local government units, or LGUs, to strengthen vaccination efforts, especially booster dose coverage. The DOH emphasized that vaccines prevent severe effects of the virus. Madeline Villar-Morotillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The public is advised to be careful to prevent virus infections during the holiday season. A health expert admits the country's available COVID-19 vaccine is not effective against Omicron and its subvariants. Celine Dorado reports.
The original series of COVID-19 vaccines are not effective against the new BF.7 subvariants detected in the country. Infectious disease expert Dr. Ronchin Solante says there is a need to develop new vaccines intended for Omicron and its subvariants.
And when you have a vaccine that is specific for Omicron, then mas angat ang protection natin, especially against getting the infection and getting the severe infection.
Solante says the vaccine is not entirely resistant to BF.7 compared to variant BQ.1.
So it also follows that even wala pang masyadong data on a BF.7, but hindi to ganun ka-resistant sa bakuna kumpara sa BQ.1.
The Department of Health data shows a detection of 4 cases of BF.7 in the country. The agency did not mention the time or location of the discovery. Solante reminded the public to be cautious and careful, especially with the relaxed restrictions in the country and various holiday gatherings.
Well, sa ngayon kasi, with the coming holidays, no, at nakikita naman natin, lahat ng mga situations ngayon, nakikita natin parang pre-pandemic times na. The health protocols has really been relaxed because of the gatherings and the other activities, no. There's a possibility na tataas ang mga kaso.
Celine Dorado, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s foreign visits has generated $23.6 billion of investment pledges. This was indicated in the accomplishment report submitted by the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI. Press officer in charge, Undersecretary Cheloy Garafil, said the investment pledges cover the president's visits to Indonesia, Singapore, the United States, Cambodia, and Thailand. The investment pledges were secured as the administration gears toward aggressively attracting more foreign businesses to come to the Philippines. The DTI did not include in their year-end report the investment pledges gathered by President Marcos in his visit to Belgium, where he participated in the ASEAN-EU commemorative summit in Brussels. President Marcos said he received 8.9 billion pesos in investment pledges during his Belgium trip, where he invited investors in key sectors such as energy, e-commerce, technology, and agriculture. President Marcos is set for a state visit in China in January next year.
The Philippines and South Korea have signed a $3 billion agreement for the Korean Development Assistance Loan Package. The loan is intended to fund development cooperation projects between the two countries. Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo and South Korean Ambassador to the Philippines, Kim In-chul, signed the framework arrangement. The loan assistance is from the Economic Development Cooperation Fund from the year 2022 to 2026. The Republic of Korea is the sixth largest source of Philippine Official Development Assistance, or ODA, loans in 2021. The country's big development projects are sourced from the loan deal. One is Phase 2 of the Agila River Multipurpose Dam project, worth 11.2 billion pesos. Other projects include the Ilocos Norte and Abra irrigation project and flood control projects under the Philippine-Korea Project Preparation Facility.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has appointed retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Dante Tinga as acting chairman of the Development Bank of the Philippines, or DBP. Office of the Press Secretary Officer in charge, Undersecretary Cheloy Garafil, says the appointment of Tinga was dated December 9. He took his oath before Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin on Thursday, December 22nd. Tinga served as a magistrate from 2003 until 2009. He is also a former representative of the Taguig-Pateros district. The acting DBP chairman served as Dean of the College of Law of the University of the East from 1989 to 1993 and from 2017 to 2018. The DBP is a prized governmental financial institution supporting the government's developmental program.
Expect more price adjustments on petroleum products next week. Director Rino Abad of the Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau said a price cut of 30 to 50 centavos is expected for every liter of diesel, but there will be a price increase of 10 to 20 centavos for every liter of gasoline. Abad said price adjustments may vary depending on trading day results.
Energy Secretary Rafael Lotilla has announced a 2-week maintenance shutdown of the Malampaya natural gas facility from February 4th until the 18th. The shutdown is in preparation for the summer season when demand for electricity is expected to shoot up, especially from consumers in Luzon. The Department of Energy, or DOE, assures that it is coordinating with responsible agencies to lay down contingency measures for continuous power supply. However, the DOE did not mention if the shutdown would result in increased power rates. The Malampaya shutdown is a regular activity to check the facility's smooth operation. Records show 20% of Luzon's power requirements are sourced out of Malampaya gas.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared December 26 a special non-working day. Malacanang's announcement extends Filipino celebration of the holiday season. President Marcos Jr. issued Proclamation number 115 to give the people the full opportunity to celebrate the holiday with their families and loved ones. The long weekend also aims to promote domestic tourism. President Marcos Jr. has directed the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, to issue a circular to the private sector for the holiday announcement. Coming up, President Joe Biden warns U.S. to take winter storm extremely seriously. Russia says Navy drills with China are a response to aggressive U.S. presence. And North Korea fires unspecified ballistic missiles. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news. Please stay tuned.
Dito sa UAE especially, they love Filipino. Kasi you work more than they expect.
Actually, the Filipino communities here are very supportive. All the entrepreneur here, binibigyan nila ng training how to handle businesses in Dubai. Not only in Dubai, but specifically in the UAE.
As you can see, perhaps, when you go to the streets, there's a lot of economic activity going on. And of course, for many of these companies, they rely on Filipinos as, to run their offices, shops, to provide all kinds of services.
You know, Dubai is a vibrant city. There is so much potential in the market. Women, they spend so much money in fashion.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
May mapagmamalaki na ako! Yun mo, Bex, tabu! Nahuli ko, tas ipapiring squad ako. May plano ako, kapag nandun na tayo, sumigaw tayo ng sakuna. Para magkagulo. Tama!
Bakit ngayon ka lang umuwi?
I've been to QZ or Quezon City.
May dala ako sa'yo. Ang paborito mong Mang Doc's Chicken. May sauce na, masarap pa.
Continues here on Mata ng Agila International. More than 1,800 flights are canceled across the United States. A massive winter storm is upending holiday travel plans. The storm brings a triple threat of heavy snow, howling winds, and bitter cold. At least 5 U.S. states have already implemented emergency plans: Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, Georgia, and North Carolina. Others are likely to follow. The worst of the Arctic blast is yet to come. U.S. President Joe Biden warns Americans this storm is serious stuff.
It's not like a snow day, when you're a kid. This is serious stuff. And my team is prepared to help communities weather this, no pun intended, this storm. Please take this storm extremely seriously. And I don't know whether your bosses will let you, but if you all have travel plans, leave now. Not a joke.
Blinding whiteouts and hazardous road conditions are already seen in parts of the country slammed by a dangerous cold front. According to Flight Tracker FlightAware, beyond the cancellations, more than 3,700 other flights within, into, or out of the U.S. are delayed. Weather forecasters say the storm could rapidly strengthen into what is known as a bomb cyclone.
President Vladimir Putin says Russia is aiming for a speedy end to the conflict in Ukraine. He says fighting should end as soon as possible. Putin says Russia's goal is not to wind down the war, but to end it. He says they will make sure that it all ends. The sooner, the better. The Russian president says intensification of military actions will lead to unjustified losses.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sees no early end to the war in Ukraine. He says Russian President Vladimir Putin does not appear to want an end to the fighting.
Fundamentally, right now, Russia has shown no interest in meaningful diplomacy, in meaningfully engaging to bring this war to an end.
Blinken says Russia could immediately end the war by withdrawing troops from Ukraine.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says any further Western support for Ukraine will only prolong the conflict in Kyiv. Putin asserts that sending more weapons to President Volodymyr Zelensky will only delay Russia's inevitable victory. He downplays the significance of Washington's Patriot missile air defense system and says Russians will find a way to defeat it. Putin also insists that armed conflicts end through negotiations. Analysts interpret Putin's statements to imply Kyiv must cede territory in exchange for peace.
Ну, а что касается патриотов, это достаточно старая система, и она не работает, так скажем, как наша С-300. Но, тем не менее, ведь те, кто нам противостоит, исходят из того, что это якобы оборонительное оружие. Ну, ладно. Мы просто будем иметь это в виду. И противоядие всегда найдется. Так что те, кто это делают это зря. Это просто затягивание конфликта. Вот и все.
Joint Navy exercises between Russia and China continue until December 27 in the East China Sea. Russia's army chief calls the drills a response to U.S. military posturing in the Asia-Pacific. Valery Gerasimov says this cooperation is a natural reaction to what he describes as an aggressive buildup of U.S. military in the region. He says the exercises are in strict accordance with international law. The war games will be off the coast of China to strengthen naval cooperation. Russia's defense ministry says the exercises will include live fire drills with missiles and artillery. They will also include practicing measures to counter submarines.
White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby claims North Korea sold arms to Russia's private military company, the Wagner Group. Kirby alleges Russia used the supplies for its onslaught in Ukraine. He says Pyongyang's shipment to Wagner last November violated UN Security Council resolutions. He hints that Washington will announce further sanctions on Wagner. The White House spokesman claims Wagner has 50,000 troops in Ukraine, emerging as a rival power center in Russia's military force. He reveals the private group is spending more than $100 million each month in its Ukraine operations. UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says Britain agrees with Washington's assessment. Cleverly claims Russia's turning to North Korea for help is a sign of desperation and isolation. Meanwhile, Wagner owner Yevgeny Prigozhin denies the U.S. allegations. Prigozhin describes Kirby's statements as gossip and speculation.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea rebuffs Washington's reports that North Korea supplied Russia with weapons. According to state news agency KCNA, Pyongyang describes the allegations of the West and its allies as absurd, not worthy of any comment or interpretation. A North Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman insists the arms transactions between Pyongyang and Moscow never happened. He calls the reports a groundless theory cooked up by dishonest forces or for different purposes. The spokesman also advises the international community to focus on the U.S. criminal acts of bringing destruction to Ukraine by providing it with lethal weapons.
Seoul's military accuses Pyongyang of firing 2 unidentified ballistic missiles to the Sea of Japan. The short-range missiles were launched at around 4:32 p.m. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, or JCS, did not detail how far the missiles had flown. The JCS also did not identify the type of weapons fired. Seoul's military asserts it maintains a full readiness posture to closely cooperate with the United States. News reports say Friday's launch came hours after the White House accused North Korea of supplying arms to Russia's private arms company, the Wagner Group.
To other news now, elderly patients line the wards of hospitals in major cities as China battles a wave of COVID cases. Health officials say it is impossible to track the outbreak since the end of mandatory testing. Millions of seniors across China have not been immunized against the virus. That has raised concerns that COVID may kill the most vulnerable citizens in huge numbers. Under new government guidelines, many of those deaths will not be blamed on COVID. Meanwhile, crematoriums are struggling to keep up with the demand for their services. One staff member says the number of cremations in their facility reaches 30 bodies daily. A crematorium driver says he does not keep count of how many bodies he transports or if they died of COVID. He says they work more than 10 hours a day with few breaks.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning says on Friday that the epidemic situation in China is generally predictable and controllable as a response to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's call on China to share information on its COVID outbreak, saying its surging caseload had impacted the world. In her speech, Mao says China's vaccination rates, treatment capacity, and production capacity of medical materials continue to rise, adding that the overall supply of the country is sufficient for their needs. The spokesperson believes Chinese people will unite to respond in a new stage of stable and orderly economic and social development. In addition, Mao clarified China's efforts to inform the World Health Organization about the country's state at the time of the pandemic.
中方始终本着负责任的态度，同世卫组织和国际社会分享有关信息，愿继续同国际社会团结合作，更好地应对疫情挑战，更好保护人民生命安全，共同推动经济平稳恢复增长，推动构建人类卫生健康共同体。
The Florida Supreme Court has approved Governor Ron DeSantis' request to impanel a grand jury to investigate COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers. DeSantis' petition accuses Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna of potential harm. The governor argues that a Florida Department of Health analysis found an increase in the relative incidence of cardiac-related deaths among males 18 to 39 years old within 28 days following mRNA vaccination. DeSantis adds it is illegal to mislead and misrepresent drug efficacy. Meanwhile, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, acknowledges that cases of heart inflammation have been recorded after vaccinations. But the CDC insists those cases are rare. Up next, suicide blast kills police officer in Pakistan capital. U.S. Congress clears first hurdle for $1.7 trillion spending deal. And Uganda receives 2 more trial vaccines against Ebola. Stay tuned. Matang Agila International will be right back.
Nandun ka pa lang, pinapanood pa lang kita. Kailangan ko siyang ma-interview. At Eto na.
I'm here. I was delivering pizzas. I was working in the youth
Wait. Anong mga racket mo nun? Delivery boy ng pizza.
I was doing roofing at the age of 17,
Construction
18.
Worker pa. Hindi alam ng tao yan, ha? Delivery boy ka pala ng pizza, ha? No regrets, iniwan mo ang Philippine showbiz to slug it out?
Absolutely not. No naman. Because it taught me a lot.
Grabe naman ang mga experience mo, baby.
Ay, makulay ang buhay ko.
The first ever Filipino to win Dancing with the Stars, biggest in France.
Hindi na ako masyado nakakalakad at that time sa rehearsal.
You can't imagine what it did to your body. Ang daming matututunan ng tao sa kwento mo. Only on Karina Interviews.
That's right.
Bakit kinakausap mo yung Koreanong amoy kimchi na hilaw?
Nakikipagkaibigan lang yung tao.
Kilala niyo ba yung may-ari nito?
Ako.
Naghahanap ako ng venue dahil meron akong pa-audition na gagawin.
At least one police officer was killed by a suicide bomber in Pakistan's capital. An explosive device was detonated in a stopped car, the first attack in Islamabad in years. According to a senior police official, officers followed a suspicious taxi driven by a long-haired male driver with a female passenger. The officers stopped the car and asked the driver to come out. The driver followed but immediately went back inside the car, pressed a button, and caused the car explosion. The female passenger's state is unknown. A policeman is confirmed dead. 6 others are wounded, including 4 police officers.
G7 foreign ministers say the Taliban's treatment of women in Afghanistan may amount to a crime against humanity. The ministers demand the ban on women attending university be reversed. These Taliban policies are designed to erase women from public life, which may affect engagement with G7 countries. Taliban rulers have drawn global outrage with the recent ban after promising a softer rule when they returned to power last year. The hardline Islamists had already barred girls from attending secondary schools in March. G7 ministers demand that both decisions be reversed without delay. The G7 consists of Britain, Canada, Italy, France, Germany, Japan, and the United States.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi delivers her final weekly news conference before the Republican Party takes control. Pelosi, a Democrat, addresses members of the press as guardians of democracy.
This is my final weekly press conference, and some of you have been covering Congress for a long time. Others are new. All of you are guardians of democracy. I'm just hoping that on January 3rd, that they'll be expeditiously able to elect a speaker so that we can get on with the work of the Congress.
U.S. senators have approved a sweeping annual spending budget for 2023. According to Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, the bill will benefit veterans, national security, and the health of democratic institutions. The $1.7 trillion blueprint must be approved by the House of Representatives before Friday's midnight deadline to keep the federal government open. House lawmakers aim to secure the deal, but there are debates on the fine print. Another roadblock is a massive winter storm hitting the U.S., resulting in transport chaos in the capital. Included in the bill are $45 billion in aid to Ukraine and election law reforms to prevent a repeat of last year's Capitol assault.
The U.S. Census Bureau says migration to the United States is set to fully rebound this year. It will drive population growth after pandemic-related disruptions. According to official estimates, the U.S. resident population jumped by 0.4% this year after a historically small gain of 0.1% last year. Last year's figure was due in part to deaths from the coronavirus and a drop in immigration. Since 2020, international migration has been low due to pandemic travel restrictions and closed borders. But net migration added more than 1 million people to the U.S. population in the past year. This is a sharp rise from 2021's total of 376,000. Another reason is the largest year-over-year increase in total births since 2007. Natural growth boosted the population by 245,080. This is the number of births minus deaths.
The southern U.S. state of Arizona will dismantle a makeshift wall on the country's border with Mexico. The wall is made out of shipping containers. Critics call it an environmentally damaging political stunt that did nothing to keep migrants out of the United States. The area is very difficult to navigate and has been avoided by human traffickers. Environmentalists say the barrier divided an important conservation zone that is home to vulnerable species, blocking their migration routes. The state spent $90 million lining up the rusting cargo containers over a 7-kilometer stretch of federal land. Under an agreement with the federal government, the state will have to remove the 915 containers and other materials associated with the wall. A conservation spokesman says before the wall was put up, surveillance cameras in the area never caught any migrant traffic.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador criticizes the U.S. role in the Peruvian crisis. López Obrador insinuates that Washington is behind the fall of former Peruvian President Pedro Castillo. The Mexican president says there are suspicions of America's involvement in Peru. He recalls that the first message after President Castillo's removal was from U.S. Ambassador to Peru, Lisa Cana. Cana visited appointed President Dina Boluarte after the state of emergency was declared.
Uganda has received shipments of 2 more trial vaccines to fight against an Ebola outbreak. The country now has 3 candidate vaccines to inoculate against the Sudan strain of the deadly virus. One vaccine came from Oxford University in the UK, another from the Sabin Vaccine Institute in the US, and the third from the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative. Uganda has received about 5,000 doses of the 3 vaccines. Health officials said last month the number of new cases was falling. The last confirmed patient with Ebola was discharged from the hospital nearly a month ago. The government has also lifted a 2-month lockdown into Ebola hotspots. According to the World Health Organization, an outbreak ends when there are no new cases reported for 42 consecutive days.
The U.S. congressional panel investigating last year's Capitol riot accuses former President Donald Trump of a multi-part conspiracy to thwart the will of the people. The final 845-page report claims Trump subverted American democracy. The document's executive summary says the central cause of January 6th was Trump. It claims none of the events of the U.S. Capitol attack would have happened without him. The panel says Trump knew he lost the election, but still pressured state officials and his supporters to overturn the results. The report concludes Trump refused repeated entreaties from his aides to condemn the rioters or to encourage them to leave. It also recommends barring of former POTUS from public office. Over 18 months, the congressional panel conducted more than 1,000 interviews and held 10 public hearings. It collected more than 1 million documents since forming in July last year. Trump did not cooperate with the panel. He declared the final report a witch hunt after its release. The panel will dissolve in January next year when Republicans take control of the House of Representatives.
French serial killer Charles Sobrage was freed from a Nepali jail Friday. Known as the Serpent, Sobrage is responsible for the murder of 2 North Americans in Nepal in the 1970s. The 78-year-old was transferred to immigration detention ahead of his scheduled deportation to France. As per Nepal's top court decision, his expulsion is expected to happen within 15 days. Sobrage's lawyer says the expulsion might be delayed due to Sobrage's heart issues. The court ordered Sobrage's release on health grounds following his heart surgery back in 2017. He completed 3/4 of his sentence. A French Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesman revealed its embassy in Nepal is keeping an eye on the situation. If France is notified of Sobrage's expulsion from Nepal, it is required to grant it because Sobrage is a French national.
Authorities say a shooter killed 2 people and wounded 4 others in a gun attack near a Kurdish cultural center in Paris. Reports confirm multiple gunshots were fired on Rue d'Enghien Street. Panic ensued afterwards. Police have arrested the 69-year-old suspect. The Paris prosecutor says an investigation into murder, manslaughter, and aggravated violence is being processed.
Moroccan firefighters quell a huge fire in an industrial zone north of Casablanca, the country's most populous city. According to local authorities, the fire started in a gas warehouse Thursday evening. A witness says it started with a gas leak, but the origin of fire is still in question, if it came from a lighter or a cigarette. The huge explosion occurred in the port of Mohammedia. It was described as mighty, burning nearby houses and cars. So far, there are no reports of casualties, and local authorities continue their investigation.
Coming right up, U.S. invests $9.5 million in sustainable bioproduct manufacturing. Japan's inflation hits 40-year high. And Philippines launches ROTC Games. More global news when Agila International returns.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
We bring you more stories here on Agila International. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA, is investing $9.5 million to develop new bioproducts. These bioproducts will come from agricultural commodities in the country. In New York, Abigail Dumlao tells us more.
The USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture, or NIFA's Bioproduct Pilot Program, will be funding 3 projects. The funding of $9.5 million will be for research and development of value-added products from agricultural commodities. The 3 awardees are the Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and Soleil Innovations of Ames, Iowa. Projects to be funded include one that proposes to convert food waste into biodegradable plastics that can be used for a variety of consumer plastics. Another proposes to convert swine manure and other organic feedstocks into biobinders for asphalt that increase the quality of recycled asphalt pavements. And a project that proposes to transform high oleic soybean oil into thermoplastic rubber for pavements. U.S. Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack says adopting a more circular economy ensures that wealth and other economic benefits in the form of jobs and other opportunities are created and stay in rural communities. Vilsack urges to support and incentivize practices like the said projects. He says these are what consumers want and what the planet needs. Abigail Dumlao, Rochester, New York, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A military operation plans to eliminate illegal mining in the jungle ecosystem of Amazonia. The Bolivian National Armed Forces have deployed 25,600 special operation personnel in the state of Amazonas, which borders Venezuela, Colombia, and Brazil. As per the Division General, 10 operations within the country are included in the framework of the Bolivarian Shield 2022. The mayor of Atures says illegal mining contaminates their rivers with mercury. Many residents suffer from diseases from the contaminated water. Amid ongoing military operations, the mayor guarantees the protection of human rights. City personnel will work hand in hand with the armed forces to protect its territory and sovereignty.
Japan's core consumer inflation hits a fresh 4-decade high. Recent data from Japan's Internal Affairs Ministry shows markets continue to pass rising costs on to households. Economists say this is a sign price hikes are broadening. It also raises pressure on the central bank to roll back its massive stimulus. Due to higher energy costs, data shows that prices rose at their fastest pace since 1981. Prices jumped the most for processed food items, electricity, and durable goods like air conditioners. The price growth far exceeds the Bank of Japan's long-term goal of 2% inflation.
FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried is released on a $250 million bail. Court documents say he is awaiting trial on criminal fraud charges at his parents' house in California. Both of Bankman-Fried's parents are lawyers. U.S. Magistrate Judge Gabriel Gorenstein ruled that Bankman-Fried poses minimal flight risk since he did not challenge his extradition, nor does he have any prior convictions. The 30-year-old ex-billionaire entered the courtroom silently. He appeared unshaven and did not enter a plea. He only made a brief statement to accept the terms of his bail. Under the deal, Bankman-Fried will be subjected to electronic monitoring. The FTX co-founder is accused of defrauding cryptocurrency investors amounting to $2 billion. Prosecutors allege Bankman-Fried misused funds belonging to FTX's sister trading house, Alameda Research. Both companies went bankrupt last month. At one point, Bankman-Fried's fortune was valued at $32 billion. He was touted as a possible future Warren Buffett. But now, Bankman-Fried claims he only has $100,000 in the bank. Meanwhile, two top FTX associates, Caroline Ellison and Gary Wang, pleaded guilty to criminal charges. Ellison and Wang agreed to cooperate with the federal investigation of FTX's collapse.
3M will phase out the manufacturing of forever chemicals within 3 years. This is in response to U.S. environmental regulators finding 3M had manufactured hazardous substances as defined by the Superfund law. 3M has used the chemicals in non-stick frying pans, sports gear, stain-resistant rugs, cosmetics, and other products since the 1940s. An Environmental Protection Agency study says these forever chemicals are linked to cancers, heart problems, and low birth weights. The substances do not break down quickly. They are found in dangerous concentrations in drinking water, soils, and foods. 3M CEO Mike Roman insists that the chemicals can be safely made and used. But he says cutting forever chemicals production is an opportunity to lead in a fast-evolving regulatory and business landscape. Environmental groups praised 3M's decision, saying the move will lead to cleaner water in the future.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, orders Wells Fargo to pay $3.7 billion for widespread mismanagement. The CFPB says Wells Fargo's illegal activities over multiple years harmed 16 million consumer accounts. Federal regulators say the bank repeatedly misapplied loan payments, wrongfully foreclosed on homes, and illegally repossessed vehicles. Wells Fargo also incorrectly assessed fees and interest rates and charged surprise overdraft fees. $1.7 billion is Wells Fargo's civil penalty. $2 billion will compensate consumers for a range of illegal activity. CFPB Director Rohit Chopra asserts Wells Fargo is a repeat offender and a corporate recidivist. Chopra adds that the billion-dollar fine is an initial step towards holding the bank accountable. He also hints at further penalties ahead, pointing out that the settlement does not provide immunity for Wells Fargo corporate officers. Chopra insists fines and restitution will not fix the bank's problems.
Recently released tax forms show George Soros' Open Society Foundation supplied at least $35 million to anti-police groups in 2021. Reports say the tax forms included a $15 million electoral justice project to a Black Lives Matter coalition. Charity database also shows Soros Networks donated $3 million in 2020 to Community Resource Hub. The largest four funds linked to Soros pulled in a combined $1.6 billion in secret donations last year. Forbes described Soros as a Hungarian-born financier turned activist with a net worth of $8.6 billion. Forbes says he has donated more than $32 billion to Open Society. Analysts say he is a favorite right-wing punching bag. Critics argue that Soros' new venture fund is a dark money organization. They say the business allows left-wing donors to anonymously pour money into political causes.
Various government agencies tie up to formally launch the Philippine ROTC Games. Pablo Ramos has the story.
Various government agencies signed today a Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, to formally launch the Philippine ROTC Games. This is to promote nationalism and sportsmanship with the re-implementation of the Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC. The MOA was signed by Defense Officer in Charge Senior Undersecretary Jose Faustino, Senator Francis Tolentino, Chairman Prospero de Vera of the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, and Chairman Jose Manuel Ayala of the Philippine Sports Commission, or PSC. CHED Chairman de Vera said the Philippine ROTC game is similar to the Department of Education, or DepEd's Palarong Pambansa, which aims to develop the physical and mental capability of college students.
Not just preparing the young Filipinos for emergencies like wars, but we also need to produce physically fit and healthy individuals. The Philippine ROTC Games will therefore provide a platform for ROTC cadets to compete in Olympic level, NSA-sanctioned sporting events as a contribution to the total development of our young Filipinos.
PSC Chairman Ayala said plans for the Philippine ROTC Games are thorough, with proper coordination with university and college management all over the country, who are also responsible in the University Athletic Association of the Philippines, or UAAP, and the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA. Ayala added that the Philippine ROTC Games will have 11 athletic categories: obstacle course, swimming, boxing, arnis, weightlifting, kickboxing, esports, basketball, volleyball, target shooting, and gymnastics.
The Philippine ROTC Games is undoubtedly in line with this mandate, for it does not only promote a vital program of the armed forces of the Philippines in training our young people towards its basic patriotic duty to country, but it also provides a new, diverse, and mass-based platform for our country's grassroots sports program.
Defense OIC Undersecretary Faustino emphasized the importance of sportsmanship among reservists to shape discipline among youth.
The event will surely reinvigorate the ROTC program as we continue advocating to make it mandatory in higher education curriculum instead of simply being one of the 3 National Service Training Program options. Aside from being a constitutional imperative, it is our patriotic duty to build a citizen armed force that can be relied upon by our people anytime. That means in times of peace and in war. The value of a strong citizen army cannot be understated. Its effectiveness in defending our land and protecting our people cannot be doubted.
Senator Tolentino, a reserve brigadier general of the Philippine Army, is happy with the creation of the Philippine ROTC Games. He is hopeful that his Senate colleagues will pass the proposed bill to reinstate compulsory ROTC in college, following its passage in the 3rd and final reading of the House of Representatives, also certified as urgent by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
The launching of the 2023 Philippine ROTC Games likewise signals the beginning of our quest for young Filipino athletes who will not only excel in sports, but who will more importantly showcase to the world that the Filipino heart is a champion, is the heart of a champion. Our shared goal in this endeavor is to strengthen nationalism and sports through the ROTC program. The 2023 Philippine ROTC Games is a way, and this has been expressed several times a while ago by previous speakers, to promote and develop camaraderie, teamwork, self-discipline, and sportsmanship, values which I believe are extremely essential in developing bodily strength as well as strength of character.
Tolentino said the reinstatement of ROTC in colleges will strengthen the country's reserve force to be utilized during national emergencies. Winners of the Philippine ROTC Games will be given an opportunity to be part of the national team to participate in sports competitions abroad. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thousands in Mar del Plata attend a tribute event to welcome back Argentine goalkeeper Emiliano Dibu Martinez after winning the Qatar 2022 World Cup. The 30-year-old describes the tribute as something beautiful. Dibu is thankful for the tribute given to him for his efforts as a goalkeeper. Credit is usually only given to the striker. Dibu said every boy's passion in Argentina is football and family. Residents commend the goalkeeper's impressive skills in saving penalties during the final. The World Cup title is a great joy for Argentines, celebrating the victory with national pride. Kate Winslet breaks a record held by Tom Cruise.
The Oscar Award-winning actress said she held her breath underwater for more than 7 minutes in Avatar: The Way of the Water. Winslet says she learned how to free dive ahead of the James Cameron film. She adds this lesson allowed her to remain underwater for 7 minutes and 14 seconds. Her time officially broke Cruise's record, who held his breath underwater for 6 minutes while filming Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation.
It's Friday! It's Friday! And for others, it's going to be a long weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And to cap our weekend, or long weekend, here's a quote from James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. Power is influence over external events. Peace is influence over internal events.
And given the choice, what would you rather possess? Peace or power?
I think peace. Because there's more internal struggle than we realize in life. And when we have peace, we get to do more things outside of us.
Exactly. And power is not to be misconstrued each of the time to mean to be ordering people around.
Yes.
It also will entail a lot of responsibilities.
That's true. And you know, I wanna relate this to Kate Winslet. Power over what? Yes, power over everything that's happening around you.
That's right.
Peace for you to stand that long or to last that long underwater.
And to keep on after 3 minutes and then 4, 5, 6, 7.
That's a lot of power and peace involved in achieving that. And that is a wrap for tonight's news. It's going to be a long weekend, you guys. Be safe, have fun, but have fun responsibly. And also, do catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores, always wishing everyone a great, great time over the weekend. Take care of yourselves. This is Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.